Hello, people out there. Can you hear me? Yes, 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 yes. Oh my gosh, that was our episode of Fever. Like it's finally here. Oh my gosh. Thank you everybody for like joining us for that section. If once again, if you want to stay around for the for the true meat of the situation, which is we're gonna have a fantastic talk back. Before we get into that, I'm going to actually drop into the chat some links. So first of all, there is the link for the Shimmy Land Trust, which I talked about before. If you have any if you want more information about our Ether series, including what is going on with my light, I'm like kind of coming in and out. I'm a ghost. Don't worry about it. If you want to know more about our Ether series, including our next episode, which you saw a preview of before the show, you can also visit our website. If you want to learn more about Playground and this entire showcase, you can totally go to the Playground's website. And also, if you just want to donate to the forum and then hop off the call really quick, you can totally do that because A, we do a lot of work, and B, we're paying everybody that you are seeing here, including all of our panelists. So yes. And with that, speaking of our panelists, I don't want to introduce anybody because they are very talented and brilliant and they can totally introduce themselves. However, I am very, very, very pleased to have a group of very talented and very intellectual artists and community members and leaders like talk to me basically throughout this entire process, but also for this talk back. And I'm going to start with introducing myself, and then I'll pass it to some of the people that you'll be listening to who are we're gonna respond to some of the work. We're gonna ask you, the audience, some questions, and also we're just gonna like dive into it because we got a lot to talk. We got a lot to talk about. We have a lot to talk about in this piece. Thank you, Sharon, and thank you, Ryan. And we have a lot to talk about in regards to mental health and cultural resiliency. So also, if you are staying around for the chat, thank you so much. And we also really want you to ask us questions during the chat. So you can totally use the actual chat feature that is in Zoom. But also, if you want something like a little bit more private, we will also be dropping a Google Doc that anyone can basically put in an anonymous response to any of the questions there, or also use that space to ask us questions, whether it be live for the panel or whether it be just questions that we can like sit with and ruminate on. So yeah, once again, I always have to say thank you, thank you, and doubly thank you. So first off, my name is Julius Rea. My pronouns are he, him. I'm currently on Ohlone Chichenyo lands in Oakland, California, or on Oakland, California. And I'll be facilitating this panel. And next, I want to actually hand it off to Sharon, if you're willing.
Yeah, thanks, Julius. Hi, my name is Sharon Shao, and I am also residing on Ohlone land in the Bay Area where I was born and raised. And I am first generation Chinese American actor and teaching artist, and just other sort of things that I like to do are making theater and yeah, getting through this very interesting year. So super pleased to be here and to have co-created something with Ryan, who I will pass to.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Sharon. My name is Ryan Takemiya. I use he, him, his pronouns. And I am a fourth generation Chinese American and Japanese American Californian. Actor, writer, theater maker. And I'm also a board member of the Forum Collective. And we are so happy not just to be presenting this to you today, but just to, to be able to be making art, to continue to be making art in these times. And it is a blessing to be here and just to be making art and to be sharing that with you all. So thank you so much for allowing us to share our art with you. That's me. I'll pass it on to whoever is next. Perhaps Lauren, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'll happily introduce myself next. So thank you, Julius, for facilitating the space into Forum, for the incredible work that you all have been dedicating your time to. I'm Lauren Ito. I am currently on occupied Pomo land, and some words to describe myself would include that of designer, poet, writer, and someone who's very passionate about community and the potential that we all hold to liberate our own communities, and in doing so liberate others. I would say that a question at the core of my work is about the intersection of art as a force for political change and collective liberation. And very, very excited for the conversation today and all those who are joining us for this conversation. And with that, I will pass it off to Vickie.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. What it means is wrong. My name is Vickie Chang. My parents were born in China. They fled to Taiwan before the communists came and immigrated to the US. And I was born here in San Francisco. I'm a psychologist, I'm a writer, I'm a group facilitator, and it's a real honor to be here. And I'm just really deeply moved by that piece. Thank you so much. Gonna pass it back to Julius.
Thank you so much, Vickie. Also for our attendees, more links, baby, because we got knowledge and we're sharing that knowledge. All of our panelists have actually suggested some resources to just remind us to like visit either during the conversation or after the conversation. And hopefully that this discussion doesn't just stay here, but that it moves forward and lives with us. So yeah, I think that the first thing that I have to say is, once again, gosh, it's not a forum show if I don't say thank you 5 million times. But I really want to start off with like Ryan and Sharon, because this piece is so, when I saw it for the first time, I got very verklempt. And I got very viscerally emotional, and it just got deeper and deeper every single time I revisited it. So I just wanted to start off with asking you, A, how are you feeling? B, what was the process like? Anything that you want to share or anything that stuck out? And also, I think that this last question is something for the other panelists and also all the attendees, if you want to put it in the chat, if you want to use the document. Just like what stood out with you still with the piece, and what kind of is new when after watching it. So yeah, I'll start off with Ryan this time because I started with Sharon last time.
Yeah, well, thank you, Julius. How am I feeling? Well, I'm feeling, I feel both good that we are able to bring this work to light, and I'm feeling wonderful that I'm getting to share it and to be able to express the feelings that we put into it, but also feeling, it's a mixed feeling because of the fact that we felt that we needed to make this piece, that the piece was inspired by various different attacks on our community, and that of course does not feel great. But then also feeling grateful for the opportunity to gather with fellow Asian American artists and activists and people in the community to be able to talk about healing. So that feels wonderful. So it's a mixed bag. After watching this again, or I guess your second question was how. What was your second question? It was like, I forget.
Just what sticks with you with the show?
Oh, what sticks?
Now?
Yeah. It's what sticks with me is just the complexity of our current situation. The complexity, it is so, there are layers upon layers of things going on with this piece, with the world, with our community. I mean, I could talk about this piece for days, because it's not just about anti-Asian sentiment during COVID. It's about Asian Americans and our own identity, our own issues with how we feel about ourselves in this country, assimilation versus being unique, and there's so much going on, and it's all intertwined. So that really sticks with me as I watch this piece. It is so complex and so multi-layered, and I could keep watching it for days and talking about it for days. That's what sticks with me. Yeah, thank you.
Of course. Sharon, do you want to comment on anything from your perspective? Because I know that also that is something loud outside my house. Because Sharon, you also edited the piece. So I think that the difference between you and Ryan's perspectives might be a little bit different.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that question. Just first of all, I echo so much of the feeling that Ryan expressed, that it was a very complex process, even just entering into the decision to make something like this at this time, and how we went about it kind of kept evolving. And so I'm filled with a lot of just pride and just some joy that we did it, and I may not entirely even know what it is that we made, or what are the themes, or what are the exact like sentiments that sort of I want to express, because it feels like something that I could watch back as well, and keep gaining some more sort of insights from it. And I'm also feeling a lot of grief just come up as I watch it back. I think I infused a lot of clips and soundscape sort of bits in the editing process that are from my personal life, and some travels that I made with my family to China, and just other sort of like pieces of life in this area in the Bay, and watching it back, just realizing how far ago that was, and I think it's hard to really put in words like what this feeling is, but there's some loss, and it's an unexpected kind of emotion of like, wow, we're not in that place anymore right now, or I don't know. I feel like with more just of this conversation, I want to hear from other people, of what your thoughts are. Maybe we can just kind of crack it open more. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. And also I want to like pivot that question also to Lauren, because Lauren is such an incredible like multidisciplinary artist and curator. And like she said before, there's a lot of cross sections in Lauren's work that are also present in this work, that there is aspects of healing arts and therapeutic arts inside of narrative art, and also political art. So I kind of want to like ask that question to Lauren first, or pivot, gotta get rid of that word. But yes, Lauren.
Yeah, and I believe that the first part of your question initially was just how is everyone doing? And I would say that I've been asking myself that question a lot and keep hoping that I will hear a better answer. But to be honest, like, I am feeling heavy, really resonate with Sharon's articulation of grief. And sometimes it's really hard to just move through the day. And I want to name that. I think that there's a lot there's a lot of incentives to be performative and say like, it's fine, or the path to healing feels great. But sometimes the path to healing really does not feel so great. And I think that this art piece in particular, what really resonated with me was I wrote down like the dissociativeness that you get from the piece itself. Like the dissociation, this intense process of reckoning in relationship with someone else and in relationship to these entities that are constantly telling us, like, you will never be enough, you will never have power in this country, don't leave your house. And what it comes down to for me is that, like, that's what white supremacy and a white supremacy culture does, is tell us that we don't matter, that we exist in isolation, and that our experiences are something to be dissociated and continually made smaller. And what I really appreciated about this piece is you're watching a process of reckoning, and in that process of reckoning there is healing and perhaps moments of seeing the sky, moments of glimpsing into a future that is perhaps beyond what we feel like we can grasp right now, but also very honest and candid in the fact that sitting in the process of reckoning feels chaotic and dissociative and gritty. So what really struck me was how honest and raw the piece was in putting visuals and sentiments to things that I haven't been able to quite articulate within myself over the course of this whole COVID process and this whole political roller coaster that we've all been strapped into against our will, I would say.
It's so weird because like I could listen to any one of you talk for hours and I'm just like, yep, Lauren. But I think that you also talked about something that I want to ask Vickie about, which is that the path to healing is not always smooth. And sometimes it's, like you said, it is like messy, and I love that word gritty. So also I wanted to like switch over to Vickie for a second and just like ask openly, your work also has this cross section between like personal liberation and mental health and like political liberation and like social and community health. So I wanted to kind of ask like, what were you feeling or what were you taking away from the piece? And what also kind of like pings in your head with the piece about the process of mental health, especially in this current time?
Yeah, the piece, I was crying during the piece. It just, it was very rich and nuanced. And to me, well, I think the fundamental human desire is to be seen. And that's also our greatest fear. And for each person, given the identities that they hold, there are particular barriers to that, external and internal. And I just thought the piece so beautifully touched on some of the barriers being Asian American at this particular time in history. And that's why it's so important to have spaces like this, because so many groups are struggling at this time. And it's just important for us to gather in solidarity so that we can really explore the richness and complexity of our experience, which is really different right now based on the identities that we hold. Something that came up for me just watching was during the election, probably like many of us, I was just feeling such terror, such like visceral terror that entire week before it was called on Saturday. And as I was able to sit with that, I realized that the truth of that terror is the reality of this nation. I mean, Ryan was saying it's too bad we have to make this, but actually, this is a country based on genocide and slavery. And the truth is nobody is safe in that kind of regime. Nobody. It doesn't even benefit white people. Because when I think about healing, and I loved how you guys touched on this in your piece, I think about connection to my heart. And I think about connection to my body and to the land. And that is, I think of as our birthright as human beings. And there are like so many different paths to getting there. And actually, even though I'm trained as a psychologist, I think a lot of Western mental health is is another part of the colonized machine. Anything can become part of the colonized machine. Like, for instance, I think awareness practice is critical to healing, you know, noticing what's happening inside your body, inside your mind. If you don't know that it's happening, how can you bring it into the light of awareness, and how can healing occur? But, you know, like, mindfulness has become part of the colonized machine of, like, how do I become a better drone? How do I become, you know, how do I fit into work better, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I just thought the piece was really profound in touching on these critical pieces of healing, which include connection, like human connection, rather than like these boxes we're in, like the digital world. Human connection, connection to the land, being in community, and really connecting to the wisdom of our ancestry.
Whew, whew, I need like a sip of water. Vickie Chang. I need a sip of water after that. But I think that, whew, I really need like to like drink that in for a second. But I think that that also touches on something that I kind of want to ask everybody, if my light works, is, you know, there's no right answer to this, but I guess I'm just curious, because our communication has been so fragmented over this year. You know, what has it been like, either personally or inside of your families or friends structures or communities, over this year, if it can be summed up? If I don't think it can, but I think that the other question that I'm really interested in asking is like, what strategies have we all either tried or tested and failed or revised this year when it comes to resiliency and even personal strength? So yeah, I think that I just want to ask anybody, if anybody wants to, including our audience, but like if anybody just wants to hop into that, yeah.
Yeah, I'll go. I think, you know, for me, communication. So this whole Ether series came about from, you know, there was a lot of talk about communication, a lot of talk about how we communicate now through, you know, during COVID. And for me personally, communication has felt off, completely off, on all levels, in all parts of my life, whether it's with friends and family or with coworkers or whatever. The loss of face-to-face communication has made us reliant on, of course, all this technology, and but it has put a barrier between all of us, and I frequently find myself miscommunicating with everybody in my life. There's a lot of what did you say? Where, can you say that again? You're breaking up. I can't hear you. You know, your microphone's not on, all this stuff. And that's both a logistical thing, and also it's kind of a spiritual thing. I just feel like I have not been connecting with anyone. So in response to that, and in response to the global emergencies that have been happening, in response to everything this year, for me, my strategy has been a return to basics, back to basics, a return to the land, even, you know, learning how to grow food, even, a return to myself, as, you know, the things that I had to sit and think about, what is the most important to me in my life in this moment? What are the things that bring me joy? What are the things that I need to be doing? I feel like I want to be doing personally, not that I feel like the world wants me to be doing, but what are the things that I need to be doing? And really paying attention to that, and making, and shedding everything else that has nothing to do with any of that. So it has meant a return to the land, a return to what's most important, a return to a stewardship of life and of community. And that has helped me immensely with feeling okay and just feeling like I can make it through the day and make it to the next day. Anyone else?
I'll build a little bit on that. I think that one phrase that came to mind in what you shared for me I've been trying to come back to is this idea that self-care is community care. And only when we really show up for ourselves, self-care not necessarily being the commodified version of what self-care has in some connotations become, but really I think what Vickie spoke to, like, am I in tune with myself? Am I getting back to the basics of how I feel? Am I noticing how my body reacts to things as opposed to my mind? How do I get out of intellectualizing things as a go-to and pause and try to translate to what that question feels like from a place of embodied sensation? And I think at the end of the day, we can really only show up for our communities if we are showing up for ourselves. And a mentor of mine, she always asks, what does it look like for you to be in right relationship? Whether that is with people, whether that is a concept, whether that is your own healing. And I think that to do that and really commit to that, it's a very active process. It's not necessarily a passive state that we're in. So I try to remind myself that, again, that care, the constant aspiration and movement towards right relationships is a place to like center that energy and where I've found myself coming back to in basics. And another piece that I've also been coming back to is Layla Saad. She has a podcast called the Good Ancestor Podcast. I see Vickie nodding. And a question that she is really grounded in is, what does it mean to be a good ancestor? And I think when we are getting back to basics, that is the question that we all are sitting with at the end of the day, because multiple generations have sat with that long before us. And that is something that that gives me hope, especially in the moments when hope feels a little fragile.
Ooh. Yes. Oh my gosh. So much of that. I think a lot of this discussion that I'm hearing, especially this year, is and with this conversation, is that we're really seeing like a transparent discussion on what barriers look like and what barriers are, whether it be like personally, politically, socially. So I think that especially I kind of wanted to ask like Vickie and Sharon, because I wanted to ask Sharon how this translated to the piece, and Vickie, I wanted to ask for your experience with this. I guess wanted to see how those barriers have not, or how do I phrase this? How is the interaction with these barriers, whether it be personal or political, how has that relationship changed over this year? And also to Sharon, when you get to it, like what was that like trying to fuse that relationship into this piece?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think that's such a big part of healing. There's that Steve Biko quote. He was an anti-apartheid activist who said that the most powerful weapon in the hands of the oppressed is the mind of the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. And I think the issue is that so many of, for instance, the stereotypes around Asian Americans and the model minority myth have been internalized. And so that as a collective, Asian Americans can feel like, oh, I'm fine, everything's fine, I'm doing fine at work, like what's the problem? And so I think during this time, there's really been an epidemic, a mental health epidemic at large, but also particularly within the API community. All my Asian American therapist friends and I are like pretty full in terms of referrals coming in, and a lot of them being first-time therapy seekers. So I think that's one to really be careful of, just the way that as human beings, we tend to internalize the messages that are fed to us by larger society, and how insidious and detrimental that can be to our own well-being.
Yeah, I'm just kind of also sitting with a lot of these beautiful answers. But to respond on what sort of barriers that I came in contact with while trying to work on this piece, I think very much I resonate with Vickie's statement about internalized. Well, for me, I think it's like a lot of internalized shame that has existed. Yeah, just like that's, I feel like part of the structure of my family was around shaming, and that often made me feel like I couldn't fully believe in the work that I wanted to do, which was talk about myself or share the like just being vulnerable, I guess, and pouring that vulnerability into art, and pursuing like just a honest conversation and dialogue about what the experience of family is. And there's just a lot of silencing that sort of shaped that informed a lot of my coming up. And I think that just choosing to still work and to still choose vulnerability, I suppose, and try and not judge myself as I embark on these projects, and have, like putting words or just calling out whatever that experience is, which I'm still very much in and trying to break through, and reaching out and like talking to my collaborator Ryan in this project. I think that was just one small example of like a way to break a little bit of that mental barrier. Yeah, and so I don't know if that exactly was, pertinent to the question, but just like doing this thing felt like an act of resilience. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And I think that that goes back to what Vickie said originally, is that, you know, the greatest thing that we're all like seeking for is to be seen. And it happens in like large ways, whether it be like politically through laws or through changes, trends. And it can also happen like in very small cases or just like on a one-on-one basis. And I think that that's the thing that I'm hearing a lot, that it's like even if that connection is with yourself, like with a mirror, it's like with what Lauren was saying, is trying to like figure out how to be in right relationship with yourself, and then realizing that that connection with self and healing that connection with self is similar to that connection between two people, and then inside of communities, and then inside of a whole system. So I think that another thing that everyone is talking about in this piece talks about is, once again, those layers and those levels of connection, and how that connection is usually the first and last step to healing, at least for me. But I want to note the time, and I want to ask a final, it's never final, but you know, like a final question to all of the panelists. I'm going to once again drop all of the resources that our panelists have been wanting to share with everybody, and also a donation link for the forum if you're so inclined. But I do want to ask, because it is November, and because this month was very rocky for everybody, I think that the last question is like, what are you either doing for yourself, or what one suggestion or one tip or one sage sound of advice would you leave just anybody, not necessarily our audience, do you know what I mean? But just if you were talking to just one person who was kind of going through it, what would you say to that person? I think that that's the thing that I want to, maybe I just want to hear that. I just want to hear all of you just make me feel better. But yeah. But I do want to start with Lauren, if you're willing to start us off.
Oof, that is a heavy and an amazing question. I cannot wait to hear what all of the other folks have to say on this call. There are two things that come to mind for me. One is a quote that my dad always says, which is, to know who you are, you must know where you've come from. And to know where you're going, you must know who you are. And like, shout out dad, are you kidding me? But what I really appreciate is from coming back to those words during this time, one thing I've done is really look at where have I come from and interrogated that more, and looked at it through the lens of what are the narratives that I want to carry on and really ground into during this time, as opposed to the narratives that have been told to me from other directions. For instance, the one paragraph about Japanese internment in my high school textbook. What does it look like to not necessarily believe that narrative, or again, narratives from other places, and look at how do people in my family articulate this thing that is rarely ever talked about. So again, this idea of like, what would be the advice I would pass on is call your grandpa, because that's one thing I've been doing every week, and really learning from other generations. What wisdom do they have, and what are the narratives that they draw upon for strength and resilience, and how can I ground into those? And then the second piece is Janice Mirkatani, who's an incredible activist and a former poet laureate of San Francisco. She shared with me during an incredibly tricky time, tears do water the seeds of transformation within us. Just let that sink in for a minute. But multiple people have mentioned grief. And I think that reminding myself and my community that in working through grief, we are continually watering the seeds for transformation, both within ourselves and again, in our broader communities. So those would be the two things that I would pass on. Call your grandpa, call your elders, talk about the things people don't want to talk about right now, and water the seeds of transformation within yourself and in your community.
Whoo! I needed gosh, every single moment. It's just like, you're like dropping whole worlds of knowledge and so much. Ryan, please take it away.
First of all, I'd like to say that I would love to have Julius be my cheerleader for everything, by the way. You've been so great, Julius. Thank you for keeping us going here. Yeah, so I was going to say that, first of all, Lauren, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing those quotes. For me, I would say something very interesting happens when you recount the tale of your life, or you recount the tale of something that happened to you with somebody else. Like when you literally speak it to somebody else, something happens to you physiologically, actually, like in the brain. Certain neural pathways become stronger, and you, by retelling the story of something that happened to you, you are literally telling the story of your life to yourself, actually. And then your brain remembers it stronger, and it remembers how you survived it stronger, and it becomes a part of your identity. So I'm really big on storytelling, and I think that one of the things that will actually help us all get through this is by telling your story to the people around you. And that could be as simple as calling up a friend and being like, this is what happened to me during my day. Or it could be as complex as sitting in front of your family and telling them how you survived the year. But either way, no matter what it is, I believe that telling the story of whatever happened to you, either during the day or in the last week or in the last 6 months, it strengthens your own sense of identity. It strengthens your own sense of self, and it gives you more resolve to push through whatever might come next. And so it could be as simple as telling the story, speaking it, but also, or writing it down. If you want to get more complex with it, like artists do, you can write it down. You can do it through some kind of art or visual medium or some kind of something like that. But I believe that to be an incredibly powerful way to reinforce your own sense of self, your own identity, and your particular strengths and abilities to overcome challenges. And it also inspires others. It gives the people who are listening to you more strength and resolve to hear the story that you overcame something. We really connect in that way. It's a beautiful thing. So tell your story, tell it to other people, and listen to other people's stories as well. That's all I've got.
Like, that's all I got. And then it's just like, that's a huge huge thing. You know, it's just like, that's fine. Sharon,
Thanks,
would you
Julius.
mind, if you please?
Sure. I'll just say like a couple quick things, is to just move through it, move your body through. I think a lot of that, yeah, it's just like learning over and over and over again that, oh, there's like something that's stuck. There's something that is, yeah, like, I don't know, it's in the way and I don't know what to do with it. So maybe I should just like, in the past, just kind of like stay in that stuck feeling. And that doesn't, yeah, it sort of hinders the actual like moving through of the feeling or of that hard, yeah, whatever that thing is. So I just, yeah, would just give that advice to shake it out, cry it out. I love the tears of transformation. I'm a big fan of crying. I do it all the time. And it honestly feels really good, and we don't have to feel afraid or ashamed of it. It's actually, it's medicinal, in my opinion, and it's true. I also think feeding yourself nourishment, and that looks maybe different for each person, but you know, for me it's like just, yeah, like giving myself things that feel like love. um, and it could be something as silly as like ice cream at like midnight, if that feels like the thing that's going to make me rest well or something. Or it's also like talking to a friend and having a communal meal with my housemates, or asking, hey, can you hold some space for me right now? I really want to talk about this, or I just like, I need to release something. And in that vein, asking for what I need. That's a huge just self lesson I'm working on as well. Like, and maybe I don't need to be so afraid about reaching out and telling people like, I would love to have some affirmation that like I'm not isolated. I don't exist in this vacuum. And it's clear that as soon as we do collect in community, that fear is sort of, you know, dispelled. Yeah, this is real. We're all in this together kind of feeling. And reminders of that feel good. So just, yeah, know that this sounds so corny, but like, you're not alone. We're all in this together. I love you. Hugs. Thank you.
I know, it's so weird because like these final thoughts always kind of like lean towards that. And then it's just like, oh, you know, oh, it's so, don't cry or all that stuff. And we're actually being like, no, but actually like lean into that, cry, feel that moment, and be with others. Yeah. And also I did want to end with Vickie because attendees, those of you who don't know, with the forum, we do a lot of background dramaturgical and interview work to support the artists who are creating the pieces. So Vickie and Lauren were 2 of 4 people that we had actually interviewed about Asian American and Pacific Islander mental health and cultural resiliency before Ryan and Sharon even got started on the actual creation of the process. And actually Lauren and Vickie's like interviews and their words, even before the process, has helped inspired me, and it's been part of the development process. So it's weird all of us coming together now, but actually we've been connected for the past 8 months together without even realizing fully what that is. And also Vickie was the first person that I interviewed for that. So I think it's fitting that you get to maybe close this out or share a final thought.
Yeah, I really appreciate what everyone has offered. I wholeheartedly agree with everything people are saying with the deeply important work of grief, for sure. We can't be alive without grief, and how essential narrative is. You know, human beings depend on narrative. So if we have a toxic one and we don't replace it with one that serves us, it's going to be what we're holding on to. And the importance of crying and community and asking for help. And I guess I would just add to that, just following the joy wherever that is in your daily life. Joy, play, pleasure. I know as the daughter of Chinese immigrants that I have a tendency towards like hard work, like hitting that healing really hard. And yeah, it's such an intense, chaotic time, just wherever you can find moments of pleasure and joy and play, I think are so important for our nervous system and our healing, just to like lean towards that as much as possible.
Thank you, Vickie Chang. I want to thank all of our panelists, and I want to thank everybody who, most of us did stay around for this like incredible talk back. And I hate that word talk back, you know, it's really just like sharing space with very intellectual, very emotionally like present people. And at least for me, like this is all like, I'm so happy that the attendees are here, but I'm just like, this is for me. Like, this is who I wanted to talk to. And this is kind of what I needed. But, you know, after this, if you stick around, you'll see a preview from actually our first episode of Ether that's on our website. This episode is going to be on our website. More information on the series is it's all on the website. If you want to learn anything, please follow us. We'll do the whole thing. But I just want to say thank you again, because I think that what I was reminded of with this piece and also this discussion is that all of the things that we like thought were either not conducive to our success or hurting us are actually like, oh no, we have to lean into that. You know, we have to like lean into joy when it's present. We have to lean into communication and connectivity when we have it. And we also have to like lean into grief when we have to explore it and then give that, you know, its own space so that we can like resolve it inside of ourselves and inside of our communities. So I think that it's just nice that we get, you know, another beautiful reminder of like to take time with ourselves, because our journeys are wholly independent to ourselves. And in that independency, it's universal because we're all on our path. So I just want to thank our panelists and all of us for sharing, you know, some time to like really let that be, you know, in the ether. Haha. So yeah, I just want to thank everybody. And if you have any questions for our panelists, you know, like go to their websites. They have like amazing websites, and learn more about them. Learn more about the resources that they shared. And if you want to learn more about Ether or the Form Collective, totally go to our website in the chat. So I just want to say thank you so much.
Thank you, Julius.
Yes.
Thank you, Julius.
Yeah, thank you. That was really special. Thank you, everybody.
Hey. Oh my gosh, all these people. Love. A lot of love here. A lot of love here. even when we're crying, which I totally did during that piece. Shut up, I didn't. I'm not crying. I am crying, and everybody's crying. Me and Vickie are just like crying like over the ether.
I was
can't stop with
crying.
this.
I was like, I'm glad my video and sound rocks. I was just like losing it. It was so incredible. Yeah. I want to, is this entire thing taped?
Yeah.
Okay,
I should have said that at the beginning, but yeah, we're recording, and this talkback along with our with the episode, along with all of the interviews that we've had over the past 8 months combined into a whole article will totally be on our website starting next week. And then all December, January, and until the end of time, we're just going to be sharing this and just making sure that so many people learn about it and just take this space wherever they are. I think that that's kind of what I'm hoping other people do, is that they watch either this episode of Ether or other episodes of Ether, and then they just sit and just have a little transformative healing moment to themselves, you know, watching this video on their phone. And maybe like that is like the connection that some people can get, and that's really cool. So yeah, it's all there. That was a very long answer to your question, Vickie.
Awesome.
Oh gosh.
All right. Wow.
Yeah.
Again,
But
everyone.
yes, but it is a beautiful day, and it's only 3. It's like not even 3:30 yet. So everybody, get off this call and go outside. Breathe the air, but you know, try to stay away from people. You know.